You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Normally, we talk about people when they pass. You know, Sinead O'Connor. Basically, when somebody passes away, we do the little obituary. But today we're going to talk about somebody who not only didn't pass, but is kicking ass on living. Norman Lear turns 101 today. Now, he is one of the most prolific writers of all time. Born July 27, 1922, in Connecticut, Lear flew combat missions in World War II before he began his writing career in television. First with the variety shows like the Martha Raye Show, the Andy Williams Show, before starting to create some of the sitcoms we all grew up on. Well, Ed and I grew up on, the rest of you were too young. But Sanford and Son, Mary Hartman, Maude, All in the Family, Good Times, One Day at a Time, The Jeffersons, The Facts of Life. And this is just among many others. Now, Lear has received a ton of awards as well, including 6 Primetime Emmys, 2 Peabody Awards, the National Medal of Arts in 1999, the Kennedy Center Honors in 2017, and the Golden Globe Carol Burnett Award in 2021. He's a member of the Television Academy Hall of Fame. And if you really want your mind blown, Norman Lear wrote on 33 episodes of The Chappelle Show when he was in his 80s. And while he's retiring from writing, he's still producing. He has 5 new things in the works, including a TV series called Fried Green Tomatoes, maybe based on the movie, and 2 remakes of 2 of the series, Good Times and Mary Hartman. So 101 kicking ass. But there's something about today. There is something about July 27th that creates creative people. Because also born on this day, and this is just people that I know of, David Avalon, currently writing Elvira for Dynamite. Ilya Silkind, one of the producers of the original Superman movies. The late Ernie Chan was born today. Fabrice Sapolsky, who we've had on a guest on the show multiple times. Mike Malvey, who owns Atomic Comics in Arizona and is a big, does a lot of work for a Hero Initiative. Nicola Scott, the artist who's worked on Wonder Woman and a bunch of other projects. And Dean Yeagle, who created Mandy and has done a bunch of cartoons and stuff for Playboy magazine. So today's a day for just cranking out talented people. So if you're born on July 27th and you're not producing amazing works of art, kind of a slacker. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Baby. Hey folks, how you doing? Welcome to the Dan Wickline Show. It is Thursday, July 27th, and we got some fun stuff for doing today. We're going to talk about the season finale of Secret Invasions, which has actually set up a lot of interesting things going forward in the MCU. We're going to do some news, and I got some interesting key collectibles for you. Hello to, we moved up here. Hello to Ed, to Triple B, and to Mark. Mark says, happy Thursday. Happy Thursday, Mark. What's up with the SAG strike? At this point, they are still just butting heads, and they can't seem to get the smart people into the room together to get it solved. So this is going to drag on for a while. We can talk about Secret Invasion without it being considered crossing the picket line, because SAG has put out saying that reviewers are not striking. We still have the ability to review, react, and analyze television and television shows and movies. So we are okay, according to SAG-AFTRA. We are not doing any paid promotions for any studios, which is the big thing they're trying to avoid, because the studios are trying to pay influencers to promote stuff when they can't get their actors and stuff to go out. So, but I wouldn't consider myself an influencer at this point. I got a handful of people, so maybe I influence you guys. If you've started painting Warhammer figures or you've taken up crochet, that might be on me. So in which case I need the sponsorship from Games Workshop and Michaels. But yeah, don't have anything from the studios. All right, let's jump into the news. Yeah, that's my favorite sound effect. All right, we're going to start with some news from HBO. The Righteous Gemstones will be back for a 4th season. HBO announced today it has renewed the critically acclaimed comedy series ahead of its 3rd season finale. Created by Danny McBride, The Righteous Gemstones tells the story of a world-famous televangelist family with a long tradition of deviance, greed, and charitable work. So, televangelist families. When the spoiled Gemstones children finally get their wish to take control of the church, they discover leadership is harder than they imagine, and that their extravagant lifestyles come with a heavy price. The Righteous Gemstones currently averaging about 4.9 million viewers and growing, according to HBO, drawing more viewers than Eastbound and Down and Vice Principals, which averaged 42 and 48 million, respectively. And they're using those because those were also Danny McBride series. Ed says, I'd love to blame you for crochet, but Mom did that when I was 3. Okay. By the way, Ed, I think I've got news about one of your favorite TV shows here. Paw Patrol is celebrating its 10th anniversary year with renewals for the top-rated series and its hit spin-off, Rubble and Crew. Paw Patrol has been picked up for an 11th season, Rubble and Crew for a 2nd, both for 26 half-hour episodes. The renewals come ahead of the first Paw Patrol Rubble and Crew TV crossover event, which is scheduled for this Monday, July 31st, with back-to-back episodes showing. I'm not going to say where, because that feels promoting to me. So, all right. This is a little bit sad, but kind of made me think. 2 screenwriters died yesterday. Stu Silverman passed away at the age of 76, while Bo Goldman died at the age of 90. And while it's interesting that one is named Silver and the other is named Goldman, the thing that stood out to me, and I want to give my condolences to the families before I say anything more, is that Goldman is best remembered for writing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Melvin and Howard, while Silver is best remembered for writing Throw Mama from the Train. I see now why he only got the silver. All right, moving on. Zachary Levi is talking about Shazam and the future of the superhero, while also opening up about the negative reviews the sequel, dubbed Fury of the Gods, received from the critics. He says, I don't know what the future holds for all of it, because unfortunately the second movie was not as well received. Yeah, let's check the understatement scale. Wow. Levi was talking to the Film Up podcast. He went on to say, the audience score is still good, but the critic score was very oddly and perplexingly low, and people were insanely unkind. Now, Shazam! Fury of the Gods got a 49% from the critics, while an 86% from the audience. So there is a difference there, a split there. In contrast, the film from 2019, the original, got a 90% score from the critics and an 82% from the audience. So the audience seemed to like it just a little bit more, the sequel a little bit more, and the critics just hated it. So Ed says, I really enjoyed Shazam 2. So did Kyle. I have not watched it yet, but I will do so this weekend. Excuse me. Levi went on to say, I've been part of things, and as much as I wish they were good, I know they're okay. I know that they miss a lot, and I'm not saying Shazam! Fury of the Gods is some perfect Orson Welles-like masterpiece, but it's a darn good movie. I think even just the world, from the first movie to the second movie, the world has shifted so much. Social media has shifted so much. Hate online, haters, trolls, and factions, and all that has just gotten more galvanized in its toxicity. I think there are people who genuinely, unfortunately, want to destroy certain projects because they don't like them, or they don't like me, or they don't like other people involved in them, or whatever. So I'm kind of mixed on that, the fallout of that, because it feels like he should probably just move on. But at the same time, I get where he's coming from. There is this online hatred and toxicity, a lot of it coming from, a certain faction of people that think one vision of the DCU should have continued, and while others think it should have moved on. The one thing that the faction that thinks it should have continued doesn't seem to be able to defend is the fact that the numbers were never there. It never did incredibly well. So, all right, we'll just move on from that. Let Levi have his day. And we'll move on to another story. We got, in response to a confused fan trying to make sense of Nathan Fillion's dual casting in the DCU. Now, he played TDK, or the Detachable Kid, in the Suicide Squad. And he's going to play Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, in Superman Legacy. James Gunn attempted to clear things up by stating that DC Studios movies and canon starts with Legacy. And while that makes sense when it comes to how he's been talking about Blue Beetle, he's saying that the character will be canon, but not the film. It's also confusing, as it was announced that there would be the animated Creature Commandos and an Amanda Waller series prior to Superman Legacy. So are those not canon? It feels like he's trying to set expectations, but also kind of dance around things that might hurt box office numbers for Blue Beetle and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. But by keeping it vague, I think he's actually not only hurting the box office overall for those films and for the Flash and Shazam 2, but I think it's also kind of souring people on the films that he'll be making before we even get to those films. I really think they need to come out and just be clear about it. They could come out and say, okay, look, the Flash came out, we saw the ending, that resets the universe. Blue Beetle and Aquaman will have taken place before the Flash. So at the end of it, it'll all be underneath the Flash reboot, and then going forward, everything will be in the new universe. I think by coming out and saying that clearly, it may hurt the last two films a bit. But, if he also says, but some of the things that happen in there will still carry over. The origin of Jaime Reyes is still going to be about the same. So there may be little things we change, but he could put it that way and then still make seeing Blue Beetle worth seeing. Because as of right now, Box Office Pro published its projections for Blue Beetle ahead of the August 18th theatrical release, and it's not good. The analysts projected that Blue Beetle will open in a range of 12 to 17 million domestically, leading to a total gross of 27 to 55 million when all is said and done. Now, it it's a fact that Blue Beetle is one of the cheapest movies made by DCU. This was originally going to be a HBO Max movie, and then they moved to the theater. So the budget on this was already low. It was around 80 million when it started. I think it got up to 120 according to the Wrap. But this marks the third lowest film in franchise history behind Birds of Prey, which was 82 million, and the first Shazam movie at 85 million. Now, the estimates they're giving could end up making Blue Beetle the lowest opening box office for a DCU film, or a DCEU film, with it actually coming in lower than Wonder Woman 1984, which premiered during a pandemic and free on Max for 16.7 million. So if it ends up on the lower end, or if it doesn't top out at the 17 million they're projecting, it's going to be less than the movie that opened free on HBO Max. That's not a good sign. That's not a good sign at all. And what's sad is it could be a good movie. It could be a fun movie, but it's not getting the hype, and it's getting lost in this swirl of change. So I think Warner Brothers needs to come out and be more firm about exactly what's happening and how this movie takes place. You know, if they really wanted to be, they could make it part of the DCU, push it back a year, push it back 6 months or whatever. Have it come out after Superman Legacy, or have it come out after Amanda Waller or the Creature Commandos, so it's part of that. Or just, there's ways they could do it. But as of right now, they're killing this poor movie, which could be good. And the fact that they chose to put this one in theaters and kill the Batgirl movie really makes people question. Because at least people have heard of Batgirl. Blue Beetle is still kind of an unknown hero. So we'll have to see how it works out. But things aren't looking good for Blue Beetle, which, like I said, is a shame, because there's a good chance it's going to be a fun movie in kind of the same vein as a Spider-Man movie. And, it's an origin story. It's self-contained. It's kind of the thing you want to go see when all of these interwoven stuff gets a little too much, So, all right, guys, we're going to take our first break. And when we come back, we're going to talk the finale of Secret Invasion. Stay tuned.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.
To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds, a promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey. And behind every page, there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
According to a statistic that I just made up, people spend 4 hours a day changing the television channel. People who watch The Experience don't do that. Save yourself a ton of time by tuning into the experience and enjoying our new original programming 7 days a week. And then tell your friends. Think about the money they could save on batteries in the remote alone just by tuning into the experience. Find out more by scanning the QR code below.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show. We are going to talk about Secret Invasion Finale. Please hit those like and subscribe buttons over there. The thumbs up, the whatever they are. I'd appreciate it. Also, stick around. Tonight we have What's in the Box and Sketch Up with Mog and Mel. And tonight's guest, who I name I'm not going to remember because it's like 3 names. But she's really cool, so you want to stick around for that. JD can put her name in the chat if he can find it. All right, so we should talk Secret Invasion. But before I jump into that, I want to say that I've been watching other reviews, other commentaries about the show, and it makes me wonder of one thing. If they hadn't called it Secret Invasion, yes, Jessica Mason Judd. I don't know if she's any relation to the famous Judds. That's a whole other thing. If they hadn't called it Secret Invasion, would this show have gotten better reviews? Because just about every review I have seen of this that talks about how the show was disappointing, what they're disappointed in is that it wasn't bigger, that it didn't do certain things like the comic. And it might be, and I always go to Kyle on this, because Kyle's the person that thinks if they're going to use the name, they should do a direct adaptation or don't do it at all. Or use a different name. And while I never agreed with that before, because that's always like, well, they're doing their version of that. This here, it might be a time to stop doing that. I mean, they could have called this Fury's Big Week, which is another comic, but Fury's Big Week, or, just something to do with Fury, because this is Fury's story. Hey, Kenneth. But because they didn't do the actual Secret Invasion story, which involved a ton of heroes, people are kind of downplaying this series. They're calling it disappointing. While to me, there is some of the best acting that I've seen in the MCU in a long time. Between Charlene Woodley. I don't want to get her name wrong. That's just wrong. Charlene Woodard, Olivia Colman, Ben Mendelsohn, Kingsley Ben-Adir, Emilia Clarke, Don Cheadle, and Samuel L. Jackson. This really is some amazing level acting. Except for Dermot Mulroney, who it isn't really that he didn't do well. It's that his character was kind of a limp, just not a very good character. He was just kind of like a wet noodle. I think I liked Shooter McGavin's character, Chris McDonald's character, a little bit better, and he was hardly in it. So from that point of view, I think the series is very good. It's a really strong acting performance. It really digs into Nick Fury as a character. It takes a look at the Skrull human relationship and how that would be very difficult. I mean, we already see, and there's a great conversation in the second episode, I believe, where Fury and Talos are talking, and Talos is like, "Well, I brought all the rest here. There's more than 1,000,000 scrolls," and he figured that they would just kind of integrate. And Fury points out that humans are not integrating people. They fight it. They have not integrated very well through their entire history. They don't like newcomers. And that's a big part of this. But there was a lot of interesting stuff setting up to this, a lot of good drama. And the fact that, the other thing I've been hearing is a lot of people is like, well, they ruined the reveal of Rhodey as a Skrull because his voice was on the phone. Okay, half the people I know couldn't tell whose voice that was. And the ones who could is because they either they looked up to see who the voice was in the credits, not based on Don Cheadle, but based on the overseas dubbing, and that it used the same actor for Man on Phone. And it's like, you had to dig in. The real reveal was in episode 4, but okay, you guys want to hate on this, go for it. I'm not hating on it. Is it perfect? Is it great? No. It's really good acting. And it's an interesting story. And yeah, they could have done more. They always can do more. But I think the story they told was pretty good. This goes up pretty high on my list of Disney Plus series. Now, let's get into the actual episode. But before we do that, let's go ahead and put the spoiler banner up and roll the crazy thing. Thank you, JD. Now, the episode starts with Fury. Well, Fury makes a call to Vara to kind of. It felt like he was saying goodbye, and it was all of setup. And then we see Fury going towards the nuclear power plant in Russia to give Gravik the harvest, which is all the DNA that the government has collected. And I say that specifically because we were led to believe it was all the DNA the government collected during the Battle of Thanos or Battle for Earth. But there's a few extra in there. The people who weren't at the Battle for Earth. Ghost is in there. Abomination is in there. Chitauri is in there. None of them were part of the Battle for Earth. So they just kind of put everything into one big container. It's kind of like my mother does that. She'll take all the open cookies or something on the counter and push them all into or candy and push them all into one container, and then you got to like fish through for the good ones, trying to avoid, oh, that one's got coconut, get it out of here. So I don't know why they did that, but it's all in one container. Now, Fury is already reacting to the radiation levels, and he's coughing and he's kind of staggering a little bit, and he's taking the pills he's supposed to take. So from that point of view, you're going, he ain't walking out of this alive. I know he's in the trailers for the Marvels, but that may be an LMD because this guy is not doing well. Then we flip over and we see Rhodey insulting one of the chief of staff or the military generals, telling her that she was, did you wake up, stupid? And it's just very insulting, and it definitely doesn't feel like Rhodey. But we know it's not Rhodey because it's a Skrull named Rava, and he is trying very hard. Scrody is trying very hard to convince President Ritson to launch the attack on Russia, to bomb the facility where all the Skrulls are, and is showing troop movement by the Russians onto the Ukrainian and Finnish borders. So again, you can see that this was written a while ago, that those things happen in real life. But he's really pushing. And then we build up to Fury and Gravik meeting. And it's a great scene, but it gets kind of diluted because of a reveal we get. And I don't think it's necessarily a reveal that surprises anybody. But it might, because they have Fury admitting that he was wrong, admitting that he knew after just a couple years that they weren't going to be able to find a home for the Skrulls, and that saving 8 billion people or whatever it is was more important than finding a home at that point. So, but also we see that Gravik, the face he has on now, is the face of the first person he killed for Fury. And of course, Fury doesn't remember it. And this upsets Gravik even more. He's like, you don't even know who you had me kill. We're just faces. And it's a really dramatic scene. And you see the just anger and rage coming out of Gravik. And it's a really good performance. But it feels more like, and I think this is the case, that he isn't so upset about what the situation as he is the fact that Fury failed him. He is more angry and wants to go after Fury and hurt Fury. He doesn't want to kill Fury. He wants him to hurt. He wants him to know that everything that's going to happen is his fault. He feels betrayed by Fury and wants to betray him back, which is not a good plan for a leader, because all the other Skrulls were counting on him to find them a place to live, and all he really cared about was revenge of revenge of the betrayal. So all of that is going on, and then we go back to the hospital, and Sonya Falsworth calls Rhodey and says, "Fury's coming. You got to move the president." And Fury's like, "What? Why would I move?" But he falls for it, and he starts trying to move the president. And as they're moving, you see all the different Secret Service guys are being taken out as they go, and they're all being taken out with tranquilizer darts. Now, that's very important, because whoever is shooting them could get into a lot of trouble for killing Secret Servicemen, because they weren't reverting suddenly to Skrulls. So I think these were human. And but the tranq darts, they can kind of go, "I had to get to you." But you assume at that point it's Sonya, because Fury is in Russia. And they do a pretty good convincing job. But I think that everybody expects that Gaia is going to jump in and be the one to fight Gravik or something. And that does turn out to be what happens, is Fury gives him the harvest and tells him, "Take it, go to another planet, wipe out another species, just leave Earth and the humans alone." And Gravik just doesn't care. He tests the DNA vial and discovers like 13 different sets of DNA in there, including Thor, Captain America. Now, we don't know if they mean Sam Wilson or Steve Rogers. I'm assuming Steve Rogers. Winter Soldier, the chlorophyll, the couple that they already had, but like I said, Ghost, Abomination, Chitauri. I mean, it's a pretty big list of powerful. Most of the Black Order, Ebony Maw, Glaive, Corvus Glaive, Proxima Midnight. So there's a lot of power to choose from. And he throws it into the machine and turns it on, and it goes and turns him into a even bigger Super Skrull. But he left Nick Fury in the center of the device. And that's part of the play. is that Fury is supposed to be collapsed to the ground. The radiation is really getting to him. And then suddenly he picks up Fury and starts hitting him. And Fury catches the fist, turns his other arm into the Hulk, and punches him out of the building. And that's when we learn that it's been Gaia all along, which then suddenly makes all of that scene questionable. All of the things that she told Gravik suddenly makes you go, wait. So is any of that true? Did he, feel bad? Did he come back for Gravik? Did he know all along that he wasn't going to be able to get a planet for them? All of that stuff that he admitted, suddenly you got to go, well, I don't know. Because that wasn't Fury. That could have been Gaia just ad-libbing. And it could have been stuff that Fury told her. But he wasn't hooked up to a machine for her to get his memories. Well, and of course, this leads to them fighting. And then back at the hospital, we see as most of the security guards are taken out, and Ritson demands one of the security guards gives him his gun, which that's probably one of the weaker things. Somebody could have been shot and the gun falls in his lap. That would have made more sense. But for him to actually take a gun away from a Secret Service agent and for the Secret Service agent to give it up. Now, if there was one on the ground, he said, give me that gun, and then took it. That, again, would have made more sense. But that's one nitpick. But that's when Sonya Falsworth gets the drop on Rhodey, has a gun to her head, and Nick Fury shows up. Because he's not in Russia. He's the one that's been taking out a lot of the Secret Service guys. And he has this big conversation with the president telling him, look, just hold it off. Just postpone. You're not sure? Postpone the strike because you're going to kill a lot of super intelligent people. That's where the real Rhodey is. That's where all the world leaders are that are being taken over by Skrulls. And he's hesitating, and Rhodey makes his move trying to take out Sonya and then turn and fire on Fury, but Fury's faster, shoots him in the head, and we get a lovely spray of purple blood on the wall. Well, this, of course, gives Ritson the evidence he needs. He goes, give me a phone, and he calls off the strike. Then we go back to the fight, and the fight between Gaia and Gravik is mostly cool. There's a couple moments where it's like, CGI could have been a little better there, but they're shifting through a lot of powers. She uses ghost power at one point, which, is very well. Well, all of Gravik's stuff is brute force. He's using Korg's arm and Groot's arm and Call of City. And he does use Ebony Maw's ability to levitate things at one point. But overall, most of what he uses is brute force, where she uses brute force, but she uses ghost power. When they're in a big fight and it looks like it's pretty even, she uses Mantis's power, puts him to sleep, and he drops out of the sky and slams into the ground. And she's able to tap into Captain Marvel's powers. And eventually, when you go back and forth and you see a Hulk kick and a Korg punch and all of this stuff going on, there's a moment that she gets Drax's arm, and it looks really weird. That's one of the weird ones. But she ends up using Carol Danvers' full might, blasting a hole through Gravik, killing him. And at that point, you got to go, well, wait a minute, doesn't he have Extremis? Can't he re-heal? So maybe Gravik's not done, but he looks done because he's laying there, eyes open. So, and full scroll thing going on. But, yeah, so that looks right, or that he's dead. Then again, they could always bring him back. And from there, we see a bunch of little things happening. We see Fury going back home and talking to Priscilla, and you still feel like it's kind of shaky between them. She still wants him to accept her for who she is, and he's he's not saying no, but he's not necessarily giving her the ground she wants, and it goes back and forth. And then you have Fury talking to Ritson on the phone, and Ritson basically goes on the air and goes, this is what happened, and I'm going to Congress to get a emergency war act declaring all off-world beings as enemy combatants. Basically, he's declaring war on all the Skrulls, but the problem is he's got a whole island up in Norway or wherever it is of Asgardians that are technically off-world beings that he's just declared war on as well. So that's going to have to get worked out. Fury tells him, that's real one-term thinking. So that's a hint that we're definitely having a different president during Brave New Order, or Brave New World. But Gaia ends up going through and freeing a lot of the people. And in doing so, we find Everett Ross. We find Colonel Rhodes. Now, there's a couple things to take from this. One is people are wondering how long Rhodes has been a Skrull. And when we find him, he is in a hospital gown and he can't walk. So the immediate thought is he has been a Skrull since the end of Civil War. When they took him in the hospital and were working on him, he's been a Skrull ever since. And there's good reason to believe that. But then what that does is it takes away all the character growth he did through Infinity War and Endgame, his final moments with Tony, the sharing the moment with Happy. It kind of takes those away. But there's a couple things to keep in mind. Number one is we see him after Endgame and he's walking with braces that are helping him walk. We see him every time we see him after that, he's in those braces in Infinity War and Endgame. When we see him in the Falcon and Winter Soldier, he's not wearing those braces. Also during Endgame, he ends up getting out of his old suit and then having to put on a different one. He has to crawl to get to the other suit. I think if he was a Skrull at that point, he would have just got up and went and got his other suit. Also, we see him bleeding and it's red blood in Endgame. So my guess is that Rhodey's been a Skrull since after Endgame. But there'd be some really amazing drama if he's been one since the end of Civil War, where he doesn't know Tony's dead. He doesn't know all the stuff that happens. That could be really interesting to see play out. But Priscilla, or Vara, ends up joining Fury, going up to the ship because the Kree are supposedly wanting to have a peace talks with the Skrulls. And that's interesting because that'll probably play out in the Marvels. And that's kind of, I think I'm remembering everything now. But, and they find this other room that's just chock full of, how will they explain him bleeding red, though? Yeah, see, I don't think they can. I think it's going to have to be that he's only been a Skrull since after Endgame. I stepped away. Why didn't Gravik use Miss Marvel's powers and end the battle? He was using Carol Danvers' powers, as was Gaia. They both were. She just got the upper hand. Maybe, and it's also possible that she has a better understanding of how those powers work because Fury would have briefed her, where Gravik would just be figuring them out on the fly. That's my only guess. But so, yeah, there's a lot of stuff to take away from that. But again, how long has Rhodey been a Skrull? How long was Ross a Skrull? Does this get him off the hook? Because he can say, I was a Skrull, that was a Skrull that did it, even if it wasn't him. A lot of stuff that could happen there. So there's a lot to work out. We're going to have a different president in Brave New World, Thaddeus Ross, and we now have probably the most powerful character in the MCU going forward with Gaia. And Gaia ends up hooking up with Sonya Falsworth, and a lot of people are saying, oh, that's going to lead to either Excalibur or MI13, which is another group of heroes that includes, if it's MI13, includes Blade, Black Knight, and Captain Britain, where if it's Excalibur, that's Captain Britain, but a completely different, group of a lot of X-Men in it. So, all right. So that's my thoughts on that. That's the recap of it. I liked it overall. I think they could have been a little clearer on some things. It's really interesting when we see the humans' reactions when they start going out hunting the suspected Skrulls. And, so that's going to be a big problem too. We see not only Skrulls being killed, but we see humans being killed that are just suspected of being Skrulls. So that's going to really be a problem. When did Fury become a Skrull on Earth? Because he was a Skrull in Spider-Man Far From Home. When he came back from being blipped, he didn't want to be on Earth anymore. He wanted to focus on building Saber. And Talos took over at that point. So it's after Endgame, probably a little while after Endgame, he went back up to the space station. So I don't know how far the space station was done, but he was Fury during the funeral, Tony Stark's funeral and stuff like that. And then he went up and Talos took over. So, all right, we will take our final break and come back and hit some key collectibles real quick. Be right back.
Did you know that every experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out. Twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
Comic Collectibles is a pretty straightforward show. You got Rex here, he sells the comics, and you got Rockin' Robbie, he knows about the comics. And finally, John, well, no one really knows what John does. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great guy, but he just keeps showing up. Come to think of it, I don't even really know how he gets in here. Anyway, awesome comics, rare books, rarer signatures, slabbed books, and amazing cover sketches by Ken Hazer and others. Simple formula, you want the comics, you buy the comics. To sum up, Rex sells the comics, Robbie knows the comics, and John, who might possibly be a ghost. I mean, seriously, has anyone ever seen him show up or leave? Comic Collectibles with Rex and John, Mondays from 6 to 8 Eastern on The Experience. Comic Culture and Sales.
You know how when you go to Comic-Con, after Comic-Con, you go to the hotel bar, and there's a whole bunch of people playing music and dancing, and you've got Pikachu and Lara Croft Tomb Raider doing the cha-cha slide just down from Deadpool and Batman and Wonder Woman? That's every Saturday night over on the Experience Twitch channel. Join Taji Beats for the EXP Dance Party, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Programming on the EXP is made possible by viewers like you, or your local comic shop, or that Kickstarter you backed, or the publisher you like, or comic industry professionals who want to share a message with the world. Really, anyone who wants to advertise with us can. If you're interested in seeing a product you know and love, or are creating, or are publishing, or are involved with, advertised here on The Experience, and having your message shared with our viewers, please reach out by scanning the QR code below or visiting our website and using the contact form.
everybody, welcome back. Ed asks a good question. It says, so do you think we're done with the who's a Skrull and who isn't game, or is it going to continue on? I think it has to continue on because it's too big of a question. Now that all those people have been released, we can start asking, they'll know. But I think we still need to see the fallout. And that fallout may be what puts Thunderbolt Ross into the White House and is what drives the whole Brave New World story. So I don't think we're done with it yet. I think there's still more to hash out on that. All right, let's go ahead and get to our key collectibles. Race through these pretty good. I know I did some of these before, but I just wanted to focus on Rhodey since this was kind of a big, interesting episode for him. Iron Man 118 from 1979, of course, was the first appearance of James Rhodey Rhodes. 55 high, 15 median, $5 on the low end. Iron Man 170 was the first time Rhodey put on the Iron Man armor. High on this is only $12. Median is 3, low end is 1. And remember, we got Armor Wars coming up that's going to star Don Cheadle. So these have a possibility of going up in price, and most of them are pretty cheap right now. Okay, then we have Iron Man 281, debut of Tony Stark's War Machine armor. So this is where he builds the War Machine armor. This high end is only $12. Median's 3, low end's $1. Then we have the actual Iron Man 282, where Tony wears the War Machine, and it's the first time on the cover. Now this goes for $100 on the high end. Median's 30, low is 10. So this one actually has got some pretty good value. 284, Rhodey dons the War Machine armor, but he still calls himself Iron Man at this point. High end on this is 5, median is 2, low end is 1. West Coast Avengers 94, Rhodey starts using the name War Machine. This one goes for $50. Median's 5, low end is 5. Median's 15, low end is 5. Then we get War Machine number 1, first solo War Machine series. High end is 5, median is 2, low end is 1. Secret Avengers. Now this would be an interesting team if they ever put it together. First appearance of the Secret Avengers, and it includes War Machine. High end is 2, high end is 8, median is 2, low end is 1. I'm just reading the screen. I should be able to do this. And then Iron Man 517 from 2012. This is the debut of the Iron Man / War Machine armor model number 39. That's the living machine that forms on him. High end is 4, median's 2, low end's 1. And finally, Gambit number 13. This is Rhodey putting on the Iron Patriot armor for the first time. We've already seen him in the Iron Patriot in the MCU in Iron Man 3. High end here is 12, median is 3, low end is $1. JD asks, Thunderbolts formed to hunt Skrulls. That's a good question. Possibly. It would be an interesting team to put together to hunt Skrulls. And it would make sense. I'm just kind of thinking about that right now. It makes sense because they do have 2 Russians on the team. So it would be like a global thing. I think that's a possibility. That the Thunderbolts are put together specifically to hunt Skrulls. It is possible the Skrull thing could carry through all of Phase 5. In some of the movies. Not all of them, but some of them. Like in Captain America, Paul Story, my former co-host on Bob Go the Writers, insists that Sharon Carter is a Skrull because there's no way Sharon would betray America like that. So if she is, then it'll probably be revealed in Brave New World. Stuff like that. We'll see other ones pop up. But it really depends on how much Marvel wants to embrace that and how much they went, okay, we did that story, now we're moving on. So they have kind of hung on to certain storylines, like the Infinity Stone still showing up occasionally. But we'll have to see exactly how they're going to play this out, but I think there is still a lot of story they could do. Ed says that just ruined stage 5 for me. Yeah, like I said, I don't think it'll be a big part of it, and then we also got to see what the Marvels is going to do. The Marvels may end up with them collecting all of the scrolls and taking them to a new planet. So maybe the Marvels wraps up that storyline, but I think there is still a little more to do. So, and like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if we get a few characters back, a few characters that have been acting out of character suddenly on the side of good again, or vice versa. So, but it is possible. But yeah, you do have to question, where are the scrolls, what's going on. So, all right, guys, that is going to wrap it up for today and for this week. I will be doing Pop Go the Writers on Sunday, and then we'll be back next Tuesday. I planned on being on this Tuesday, but I got sick. So we'll be back on Tuesday, and we're going to have a whole new set of things to talk about because we're out of Marvel shows again. So have a great weekend, and I'll see you all soon. Good night, everybody.
Do you remember what it was like when you were a little kid and you got a letter in the mail? Now imagine that letter was filled with information about your favorite shows, pop culture questions, links to things you're going to want to see later, and even sneak peeks at upcoming programming here on The Experience. That's what the EXP mailing list is. Every week, we send you sneak peeks, information, and all of the relevant links for all of the shows you want to see. Sign up now on our website or scan the QR code that's on your screen right now.